Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. I know what you're thinking. You see more of us now during a bloody international break than you are when we're actually mid-season. Honestly, this football club, what is it like? Everyone thought we'd have a break. Everyone's working more harder than they've ever done before. If you're with us for the very, very first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. Yes, it's another top-tier panel to cover all things Tottenham Hotspur, where Tottenham insist they're not for sale. Or are they? Back alongside me, 24 hours goes a long time in the Spurs sphere. He might have to keep hold of his legacy X handle now. We've got Connor over at Levynomics 1882. We've had to drag back. Con, lovely to see you. Thank you for making this work. How are you?
Nice to see you, mate. We're going to have to stop spending these late nights together,
I know.
aren't we? The wives are getting worried, but yeah, it's good to be back on. And I think also I've done a couple of the Last Word on Spurs with Brian and Luke as well. So a bit of a dream team panel tonight. So good to be on with the guys as well.
Absolutely. Look, chemistry is what makes the dream and the team work, right? Back on the show, probably one of those happiest people you would have seen in the last 48, 72 hours. Can anything bring his mood down in the Spurs sphere? I don't think so. Brian Dagul back from Tottenham on tour. Brian, lovely to have you here. We'll get you on mute. Welcome to a post-Daniel Levy era. Did you ever think you was going to see it?
First of all, can you say that again, Ricky? Just so I can drink it in.
Welcome back to a post-Levy era. Or is it a post-Levy era? Daniel is still there. Maybe just not on the footballing side of things at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds so sweet and so good. I've been in an amazing mood since Thursday afternoon, Toronto time. Can't think why. Now we see what goes on. And I'm delighted to be back with the guys and yourself to discuss all things with this crazy football club.
Yeah, it's honestly at the moment, it's a constant, isn't it? It is a constant right now. You know, you thought during this period there'd be an element of calmness, but Tottenham refused to let them have any calmness. And that means we've also got Luke back from Spotlight on Spurs, fresh off being thrown in the transfer with Archie Gray. We're now throwing him in what Tottenham are doing off the pitch. How are you, Luke? Lovely to see you.
Not too bad, mate. Thanks again for having me on. Just absolutely crazy club. But that's why we love them, eh? That's why we love them.
It's why we love them. Look, let's give you a roundup of what we've got coming during this episode of Last Word on Spurs. We have got an exclusive, of course, interview that Vinai Venkatesham has given to Spurs directly over this last 24 hours, where Vinai says it's business as usual following Daniel Levy leaving the club. The club is not for sale. Viv and Charlie are overseeing the club, the Lewis family. They've got a long-term vision for Tottenham. Vinai is taking hold of the day-to-day activity. Peter Charrington is not involved on day-to-day, but he's certainly around. We'll be getting everybody's feelings on the back of that interview because I know, well, the neutral feeling is from outside of Spurs that it's great to see someone with real, genuine clarity, communication, and being very strict to the point of where we are right now. It's fair to say also there are some skeptics in the Spurs fan base as to how much you do trust the former Arsenal employee of what he is telling us. We'll be coming on to that and more. We'll be giving you the update of where we are in relation to Spurs and, of course, takeover talk. There's been what has been reported 2 potential takeover options for Tottenham that have both been firmly rejected with an insistence the club is not for sale, or we keep murmuring, quietly, is it not for sale? There has been suggestions. Is Harry Kane potentially coming back in a post-Daniel Levy era? We'll be telling you more about that. And if Tottenham's, obviously, you'd say modern-day highest top goal scorer in the Premier League, will he find his way back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? And we're not quite out of the transfer window yet. We understand a move to take Yves Bissouma to Fenerbahce is reportedly back on. We'll be coming on to that as to where Bissouma may make his move to Turkey before the end of that respective window closing. And Christian Romero, God, what's happened in the last week, 2 weeks with Tottenham and Christian Romero? Romero's back at Hotspur Way. He's training away, getting ready for West Ham. Doesn't the tide turn in Christian Romero's world and Tottenham's world? But we have to start, look, guys, with the news. And before we do, guys, if you can keep liking and subscribing to the show, that will be massively, massively appreciated. The same you can do for Brian over at Tottenham on Tour, Luke, of course, over at Spotlight on Spurs, and keep following right now. You need to be following Connor over at Levynomics 1882 because it's really Connor's world right now as to what's going on with Tottenham, and definitely Brian's world. I think Brian's had his world rocked in the last 72 hours. But let's give everybody an update of where we are right now when it comes to Tottenham as a club in general, and what is actually happening at this moment in time. So that we left you, of course, on the previous evening with that news that we were expecting an announcement coming out of the Amanda Staveley camp that they were going to deny that they were looking to make a formal offer for Spurs. And people close to the situation said that Staveley had been in discussions with prospective backers of a bid for the club in recent weeks. Now, a source close to his family has vehemently said the club is not for sale. That was before, of course, we had the club statement that dropped on the early Monday morning. So to read this out to you for those that haven't heard or seen the statement, this says the board of Tottenham Hotspur is aware of recent media speculation and can confirm that its majority shareholder, ENIC, has received an unequivocally rejected separate preliminary expressions of interest in relation to proposals to acquire the entire issued and to be issued the share capital of ENIC. Now, in terms of those bids, just so everybody's aware, Tottenham say they've rejected 2 bids from 2 separate consortiums to buy the club. One was from former Newcastle United shareholder Amanda Staveley's PCP International Finance Limited, and another from an Asian consortium led by Dr. Roger Kennedy and Wing-Fai NG through Firehawk Holdings Ltd. And that's actually in addition to also interest, including the American NFL owners. Now, both of these have come after, this is really important we say this, after Daniel Levy's departure, and where Spurs at the moment, we had this discussion with Connor the other day, suggestions the club are being valued at the moment between 3.5 to 4 billion. Now, the key thing is that this legal step means that if the interested parties do not express their intentions by a reported deadline, which is led to believe the club have set this deadline by 5 p.m. on October the 5th, they'll be unable to submit a bid for 6 months, effectively putting an end to any speculation. Although we've heard in this last few hours that Amanda Staveley will continue to monitor events at Tottenham before deciding whether to make any further approach to buy the club in the next year. Con, if I can hand over to you, I know we're handing over to you a lot to start shows at the moment when it comes to the nature of this, maybe to give viewers and listeners an understanding as to why the club had to come out and clarify what they have done in this last 24 hours and the fact of around the case of the deadline set there for bids or expressions about wanting to buy the club, Con.
Yeah, sure. So I think there was a bit of confusion because I think when this was first reported, I think it was a Sky News article spoke about how we would have to make this disclosure because ENIC was listed on the London Stock Exchange. That's not correct. So ENIC's not listed. The reason why we are still subject to the takeover code is because of the fact that we've got it's about 30,000 minority investors that can still trade on a sort of private matching type asset platform. So we're not listed on the stock exchange at all, but because of those 30,000 minority investors, which represents about 13% of the football club, we basically have to make this regulatory sort of disclosure when someone comes in and expresses interest to purchase the football club. Now, I think what's quite telling about the announcement is, you know, one, I always think with these things, it's almost what they don't say is more important than what they do say, because what's in there is just very, very legally worded. It's all very standard wording. So, you know, I wouldn't read too much into, for example, I saw a couple of people making the point that it says when it talks about the share capital of ENIC, it says and to be issued. And a few people were speculating, oh, does that definitely mean that ENIC are going to inject some capital in the short term? That's just very standard wording that you see in these types of things. So I don't think that necessarily confirms or denies that that's going to happen. The deadline that's been set, which is the 5th of October, that is again a very standard requirement of the takeover code rules. And so, you know, the 5th of October is 28 days, and basically that's the requirement. You have to give 28 days. The other thing is, obviously, in that statement they talk about the fact that Tottenham Hotspur is not for sale, and they don't want to entertain any offers for ENIC's entire capital. Now, that's not to say that, you know, Daniel Levy's stake is potentially not for sale. I know we'll come back to this as we talk about and we spoke about it a little bit last night, right, in terms of what any sort of takeover or next step might look like. And indeed, I think the quite telling thing with Daniel Levy's stake is, if, for example, someone was to come in as a minority investor and perhaps purchase his 29% stake in ENIC, which reflects about 25% in Tottenham, they could potentially go straight into ENIC Sports Inc., which is the Bahamas vehicle, which would avoid all of this needs to make any of these sort of takeover code disclosures or whatever else. So I think, again, just to remind the sort of listeners and viewers, what's being disclosed here doesn't necessarily reflect the full picture of all of the conversations that are potentially taking place. And as you say, Amanda Staveley has obviously already distanced herself. She's already, PCP Capital have already come out and made the statement, that they're not interested, which under the takeover code rules means they can't come back in for 6 months unless they are specifically invited to come back in by ENIC, or again, they might be coming in a different guise rather than looking to purchase the full interest from ENIC. And so, and then with the other consortium, just in terms of if people want a little bit of info on who they are, so it's Dr. Roger Kennedy, who is really hard to find any information on if you Google him, but effectively he's a non-executive director of Triller. Triller is a sort of streaming platform which people may have come across. They show quite rogue sports, they've got bare knuckle boxing and those types of things. It's almost like a smaller version of DAZN. And similarly, the other chap as well, whose name has just gone out of my head, he also is
Wing-Fai
involved with Triller. Yeah, but he's involved with Triller as well, but he's also got various other sort of interests, and he's a bit of a heavyweight in the financial world. So I don't think either of them will have the money themselves. I think they're probably fronting a bid with money behind them, but obviously we don't know all the details of that.
But your gut feeling, Con, you still feel the club are eventually gearing up for a sale. That's your belief on this?
Certainly in the short to medium term. I think what will happen quicker, I think, is my theory is that they are going to look to sell Daniel Levy's stake and bring in a minority investor who can help front some cash in a way that Daniel Levy wouldn't have been able to. And I think the Lewises will then stick around with that for a bit, because then they get to benefit from the upside potentially of the return on that cash that's going to be pumped in. And it might be over time you see a phased takeover or similar. But who knows with the Lewises, because I think there's part of me that says, they might want to keep continually passing this down through the generations. And I know some people speculate that this might just continue forever with them. But I do think with the Levy share, as part of making this as amicable as possible, him moving on, he's had to give up £3 million plus salary. He's not even been given a non-exec role on the board. It does imply to me that there's something going on there, and I suspect that they might have agreed with him that he's going to try and exit in some way by selling his stake.
Again, it's interesting. This is developing all the time. Brian, bringing you in. I know, like I say, you're smiling away there. It's a post-Levy era, but we have to keep reminding ourselves not to bring you down. Obviously, Daniel is still there, and he's obviously actively in the background. And as Connor said, he's still got quite a decent share of the club still. Again, we've made that point in terms of what he has, which Connor outlined to us here, 29.88%. What's your gut feeling, Brian, at the moment where you see this being, where you see this going really in terms of the way the club is going to operate and structure at the moment? Do you feel that they're gearing up for a sale, or do you feel no, they're actually firm in the fact they don't want to sell it, and the Lewis Trust or the Lewis family are going to really want to take this seriously now, which again will come on to itself, because I know there's many skeptics out there about, well, hold on, why do they now want to take it seriously? Where were they the last 24, 25 years until this point?
So, first of all, I have to say, it is so much better having Connor in our lives. Since he's come onto Twitter with all this stuff, because I've never claimed to be the financial guru or know all the ins and outs. Since he has come onto Twitter and posting these things and breaking it down, and obviously when you see him on all the streams he goes on, he makes it so easy to digest, so easy to understand. So, Connor, honestly, big up to you, buddy, because honestly, I had to say that, when we speak, his knowledge is stuff that I didn't even realise or know, and I brought it out. I retweeted one of his tweets on Friday when he showed the document saying that he's no longer part of Tottenham, and I retweeted it saying, "Is that not the most glorious tweet in the world?" I think when it comes to the selling of the club, they're saying they're not for sale at any price. But if someone goes and says, "Here you go, here's 4 or 5 billion, right here, right now," maybe they have a strong think about this, because no one has actually come down and said, "Right, here we go." I think the club are gearing up for a sale, and I think it could be within 3 years. I really do. And obviously, like Connor said, I think if anything does get sold to start with, I think it will be Levy shares. There's something that's gone on there. It has not been an amicable breakup. This has been this has all come to light on Thursday. And as the more and more reports come in, the more and more looks like he was pushed rather than he stepped down. Obviously, he's lost his massive influence with Donna this summer and all the others that went. I think the club are gearing up for a sale. I really do think the club are gearing up for a sale in the near future, near to mid future, and we're just going to have to wait to see. It fascinated me with this October the 5th, and I didn't understand it fully till Connor explained it once again. But obviously, people will read it. I think as well, for the next few weeks, we're going to hear a lot of noise coming from the media, coming from ITKs, like we did the transfer window. And it's just, what are we going to believe? The contradiction.
I thought this was the quiet period, bro. We could just get our lives back.
We were like, thank God that window is shut. We could just get to football. No. This is Tottenham Hotspur. We need something. But I do think that the club are geared. Look, they're primed for a sale, aren't they? If you look at it,
well, no one's going to ever say they're for sale, are they? You just don't do that. You know,
exactly.
No one will ever say, "Here we are. We're available in the market for sale."
Exactly.
Yeah. So you in your mind, bro, you think within 3 years, you don't think it's going to be, you don't think it'll be imminent? Just to be clear, Bri, it won't be imminent. I don't think
it'll be imminent. And even if it was to be imminent, Ricky, I'm sure a deal to get it over the line isn't going to be done like a transfer. It's going to take. It needs to be passed through the Premier League for their conduct, and there'll be loads of things going on. So I can't see it being in the immediate future, but I do see it being in the near to mid future.
Okay, let's come on to you, Luke. Luke, welcome back. Like I said, the Archie Gray of the transfer window, quite simply thrown in without armbands and asked to swim in a deep end of a pool where, quite frankly, every day was a changing scenario with Tottenham. This feels like a changing scenario right now with, again, the difference in news we're getting day to day when it comes to, of course, potential takeover talk. You know, again, 2 bids rejected so far. Quite interesting, Luke. Again, that was reported. They came after Daniel Levy's departure. So it makes you wonder, you know, during this period, just how much involvement did Daniel have when it came to having to deal, negotiate, speak with parties that were interested in buying the football club. Again, I made that point. I know Connor's also been a little bit cautious about the valuation of reports of around 4 billion about the club being worth that amount. Luke, where do you stand on this takeover talk? And do you feel, for you, the club are actually looking for us out at this point?
Just firstly, in terms of this being a crazy club, I put something out on Instagram the other day, and it was the parade, which was just over 100 days ago, and it was Postecoglou saying season 3. And I was like, little did we know that a few months later we'd lose the manager, most of the coaching staff, the club captain would be sold, and Daniel Levy had stepped down. Like, this club is just absolutely crazy.
It's nuts.
But yeah, I definitely feel like Levy leaving in the entirety is the most likely outcome in the short term specifically. Like, imagine being anything in terms of whether it's personal life, professional life, and being essentially the head honcho for 25 years and then stepping back, still being involved on the outskirts and having no input. Like, I can't imagine that being a situation that he's comfortable with, especially when we talk about the level of detail that this man has had in terms of the stadium, the flooring. Like, he's done the interview. We all know how much he's been involved. So I don't see him being involved in any way, shape or form in the longer term. And as I say, so I completely agree. I think his shares will be the first one to go. And yeah, I believe that there's going to be some sort of sale. The phased one makes the most amount of sense because, especially with these sorts of money, they could be tied up elsewhere. They could be coming from potentially someone who already has a club, etc. So I think that's the one that makes the most sense. And in terms of we're not for sale, everybody's going to say that. These guys are an investment company. It's like if someone comes in, for me, for Spurs to go to the elite level now, which is the next sort of step, there's going to have to be some serious gambling that's done in terms of what they're going to money that's going to have to be put in to take us up to there. So it really does depend on the appetite of the plan, like in terms of, this isn't going to be in a year's time, for instance, this isn't going to be a club that's worth drastically more than currently what it is. It could be in 3-4 years if the right investment's made, but is there a longer term play here? I'm a little bit skeptical on that, but I do think that there's a long term sale going to take place.
On that point, bring it around here, Con. Do you think with Daniel it's going to be a fight to get him to sell the shares, or do you think he will be keen for a move away from Tottenham now? Like Lucas said, that he's been there for a quarter of a century. Does he want out? Is he looking to negotiate on the price of those shares? What's your feeling about that? Because again, it does feel like Brian said there. I agree. It feels like he's been stood down rather than he's gone on from his own accord. Only about from what you've seen and read. And again, get your point on that as well.
Yeah, I think I've got a bit of experience, not at this level, but a bit of experience in terms of in my corporate life of dealing with exits for very senior guys. And what I would say is you want to try and make it as amicable as possible, even when it's not necessarily amicable, because it's in no one's interest. And I've been consistently making this argument that for me, I feel like it may already all be agreed in terms of even the exit piece. So I think there would have been a conversation about him exiting his role as an employee, as the executive chairman, and walking away from that £3 million plus salary. I think it's part of that same conversation. There has been a conversation in terms of what his exit will look like in terms of selling his stake as well. And I think there probably was a very open conversation, regardless of whether you sort of feed into the narrative, whether he got on with Vivienne and all of this stuff that you've read, that the families are so interlinked, right, and have been for so long. And obviously his son continues to be the co-CEO of Tavistock, as we discussed last night. He owns more than 25%, so that makes it really difficult in terms of forcing him to sell his stake if it was a messy type situation. So I just personally don't think there is and I know a couple of people said in the chat, Simon Jordan was obviously speculating, and we know he's a bit matey with Daniel, but to be honest, I don't know. So Simon Jordan's also an opportunist in terms of the type of stuff he reports, and for example, the stuff that he said often on his channel about the debt covenants was a load of bollocks. So I wouldn't necessarily read into everything that Simon Jordan says. So yeah, I think at this level, I suspect there's some sort of agreement. It's in no one's interest, right, for it to get messy.
Okay, it's interesting, Brian. Did you share that view with Connor? Do you think there may have already been a preliminary agreement in place, and Daniel won't be looking to contest or fight this? I know there's been that maybe suggestion that maybe because of the way it's gone about and the fact that we'll come on to Vinai's comments. He seems to say he was quite shocked about Daniel's departure, and he expected to work with Daniel for many, many years, which is why, again, we're really keen to play you that interview in full so everybody can make their own assumption based on what he's been said rather than what I'm going to say he has said. I mean, your gauge on it for you, Con, do you think, Brian, will it be as amicable as what Connor may be suggesting it will be?
I mean, I hope so. Like I said, again, Connor will know this side of the business a lot better than I would. I think the silence from Levy is deafening. He's probably plotting and scheming, and it's within his right if he thinks there's a grievance.
Again, like you said as well there, I think he went to Simon Jordan. Simon Jordan apparently reached out to him for comment. He didn't comment. But again, I suppose, why would he comment? I suppose, again, it goes back to the point. He's probably legaled up right now, Bryson. He's probably things he can and can't say at this moment in time. Yeah,
I would imagine. So you look at it, when everyone left the club, he made people sign NDAs and everything that goes on. God knows what the club have got him to sign for or how amicable this is. Like I said, a lot of this that we're hearing now is just being drip fed, isn't it? And it's releases from the club, and we'll come on to the club a bit later. But when it comes from the media, it has been so many, he stepped down. No, he was pushed. Then it was Charlie and Vivienne had a word. Then it was this, then it was that. I think in the coming weeks, we're going to find out fully what's gone on. And I'm sure Levy will come out at some point and say something, or make things tough for the Lewis family. But we'll see. But like I said, Connor will know better. The silence for me is deafening, though. I think there will be something coming out. Just God knows when or what.
And Rick, I probably should add as well.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. I probably should add as well. You know, this point about him lawyering up, even if it was the most amicable of splits and it was his decision. When it's an exit of this magnitude, lawyers would be involved 100% in any business. You know,
Right.
even where a CEO decides to retire, in a business of this size, and it's absolutely their decision, there would still be legals, you know, lawyers involved on both the company side and the individual side to make sure that the exit was arranged appropriately. So yeah, there will 100% be lawyers involved on both sides.
It's fascinating because, you know, again, you've had someone there for such a long time, and like you said, Con, come over to you, Luke, the families are so really entwined. As we've said, we've got Daniel's son there, who is, you know, again, obviously very closely entwined with Tavistock, which again, I mean, it's a very, I'd say, unique situation. Maybe it's not so much unique when you get into this kind of level of high corporate, you know, dealings at this point. But I mean, how do you see it, Luke, pan out for you? Do you think there'll be a struggle there generally to get Daniel to sell the shares if he wants to sell them, if they want him to obviously leave the club directly? Because again, you know, he would have spent a lot of time with his family. And to be fair, also, he's been a human shield for a lot of the criticism that's been taken down the years. And look, that's from somebody here that wanted Daniel Levy to leave the club. And I've said that, you know, numerous occasions in the last few years. I think we've all wanted this change. But we'll come on to really why the Lewis group or the Lewis family, where have they been for the last quarter century, and why suddenly do they now want to get involved? I mean, Luke, come on to that point for us. What do you think, and how is it going to play out with Daniel, in your opinion, when it comes to the shares that he's got in this football club? And we get you on mute if you can, Luke, from your end.
That would help. Yeah, I think Connor's got exactly spot on in terms of how intertwined they are. Now, we expect that Levy is quite difficult to deal with to get deals over the line. But it doesn't work in his favour to do this. His son's part of the other company, and then obviously it can become even more awkward on his son's part and everything else. So it does make sense to try and do this as amicably as possible. When you look at the fact that the fact that he's gone means that there's I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, but so in terms of him being here, right, where with him going, it's going to mean that there needs to be some sort of level of expectation for the next people to come into. He needs to kind of relinquish some of the control and everything else, and someone else is going to step in, and there's going to be an expectation from the fan base for them to kick on. And that for me is where I don't quite sit well with how it's kind of come about. Basically, I feel like when Levy was sacking managers or the board was sacking managers, it was very much like all blame placed upon them. And I feel like Levy's kind of getting the brunt of it. But we're gonna go into the interview in a minute. But it very much feels like it's almost like it's all on his blame, and then they'll move on. But let's also remember that Levy's been heavily financially benefited from being the chairman as well. So it's not like he's done this out of the kindness of his heart and he's not been paid very royally for it. So it works both ways for both parties in this. So yeah, I think it's a real strange one. I can't imagine there being too many situations where it's this intertwined, because obviously a football club, there's another facet to this where in companies, there's not so much of a fandom that there is obviously here. So even if there's a bit of a disagreement at the top level, there's not fans outside the stadium calling for one to go to the other. So there's so many different parts to this. I do think it's a really, really unique situation. But as I say, because of the amount that there's different companies, etc., it makes no sense for either one of these sides to make it more complicated than it really needs to be. So as I say, I'll go back to that other point I mentioned earlier about Levy, is that he's had such a commanding control over this. He wasn't a non-exec, he was an executive. He managed everything day in, day out. Exactly. And for him to step back and watch it unfold, it's almost like I wouldn't want to do that. If you've been, he seems, again, this is all on the outskirts. We look at it, he seems to be a sort of control freak. and he wants to be in control of everything. So to go from doing that to then stepping back but still be involved, it's almost like, for me, I just want to cut ties completely, and then I can support from the outside and not be involved at all. So yeah, I think that it should. I think Connor's probably right. This is all probably agreed and all sorted out. The only thing I would say is that maybe there's a possibility this come a year earlier than he expected, because I think Donna Cullen staying on that extra year was him seeing maybe that I'm losing a bit of control here, and then maybe the fact that we won that cup, they see what the fans were like, they see the protest that took place. Maybe they've sped it up and got it in quicker. But that's just me having I
think it's very fair points. I mean, that's been raised. I think, again, all of them are possibilities. Con, do you agree with Brian, what he said, that you just continue to expect to hear noise about this? Would it go quiet for a period? Because I suppose the only thing now is with Daniel's departure, it takes off pressure, really. I say pressure. The noise that was on Daniel, when things were going wrong, everyone would blame Daniel for everything. Now Daniel isn't involved. Does that mean ENIC won't get a lot of blame in terms of upcoming situations with him no longer being the head and the front and the centre of it, like Luke seemed to suggest there as well?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely hear more. I think there's been. I mean, I think I said it, Rick, when we've chatted about it before. For me, it was fascinating how suddenly everyone knew all of every single detail about what went on the day it was announced, but didn't say a word the day before, right? And they found that information out really quick, right, about this review that had been done by the consultancy and all of it. So and then they all report the same thing one after the other. It's call me a cynic, but yeah, a lot of it is bollocks, I think. But I think I think we will hear more. I think the point Luke raises is a really poignant one, which is that Levy has been, and he's benefited from it, but he's also been the one who's taken all of the brunt, right, to be honest, of a lot of the criticism. And I've always been quite consistent in, Levy's got loads of faults, and he's made quite a lot of issues. There's been a lot of issues with him, but unless ENIC change the way that they operate, nothing will really change. And so let's see, maybe the kids, are completely different to the dad. I'm skeptical at this stage still until I see hard evidence that is changing, and we'll start to see that. I think there's a few things that you've got the January transfer window coming up. You've got, if they are going to inject any capital, we will see that at some point, right? So there will be examples where we can start to see whether they're operating differently. But at this stage, I'm certainly skeptical still.
Okay. Well, on that point of skeptical, look, we have criticised the club in the past for their lack of transparency, their lack of communication. To be fair to them, to be fair to Vinai Venkatesham, he has given us an interview where he's explained really what has taken place over this last week. So what we are going to do, we are going to go for our first break. We're going to let you hear directly, rather than me bring his words into the show. You can hear directly from Vinai Venkatesham, who will explain what has happened with Spurs over this last week. And like I say, we'll leave you to make your mind up about what you've heard from Vinai and what fence you are sitting on. And we'll give you our view after this break. Keep liking, keep subscribing. Let's hear from Vinai Venkatesham, who discusses the last week in Tottenham Hotspur, the soap opera. We've been here for many, many more years than you, Vinai. Let's bring him in.
Vinai, thanks for sitting down with us. I think it's fair to say one of the most significant periods in the recent history of the football club over the last few days. Can you just talk us through where we currently are?
Well, I think it's really fair to say that it was big news last week with the announcement on Thursday that Daniel is leaving the club. But what I would say is that the club is well organised for succession. So we have a very strong executive team in place. And whilst it might feel like a slightly strange thing to say to the external world, although it's big news, inside the club it really is business as usual. But I really wanted to start today by paying tribute to Daniel. I mean, what he has done at this football club over the last 25 years is extraordinary. He has played a huge part in the transformation of the club. And there are so many examples: the training centre, the stadium, the media centre that we're just sitting outside now. His contribution is there for all to see, and I think his legacy really is extraordinary. For me personally, obviously I was expecting that I was going to be working with Daniel for many years. It's ended up only being a few months, but he's been a wonderful support and counsel to me during that period, and I feel really settled in. And I think also at a time like this, it's really natural to pause and look back and reflect, but I also know in my job it's really important to look forward. And this is a new era for the club under new leadership, completely backed by a majority shareholder, the Lewis family, so we can feel optimistic and ambitious for the future as well.
Can you just tell me about the foundations that the club have now to build from over the foreseeable future, but the foundations that Daniel has helped to create?
Sure, listen, I think in terms of the foundations, and you've heard me talk a little bit about this before, I think, we've got an extraordinary stadium, we've got an extraordinary training centre. I admit I'm biased because I grew up in London. I think we're based in the best city in the world, and we've got a massive global fan base. We saw in May in Bilbao what that next step is. That next step is competing for and ultimately winning major trophies. We've had a taste of that. It's even better than you imagined. You realise the club is even bigger than you thought it was, and you're hungry for more. And that's what everybody associated with this football club is hungry for. More nights like that.
Yeah, all of us that had a taste of Bilbao very much got the taste for it now and want so much more. Can you tell me a little bit about what the family have said to you at the moment? What's been their messaging to you?
Well, first and foremost, I know the Lewis family really well. I think it's important for our supporters to know that they're very, very passionate about Tottenham Hotspur and they're ambitious for the club. And when I talk about their ambition, what they're really focused on is ensuring that everything that we do across the complete breadth of the club really centres back and is focused on giving our men's team and our women's team the best chance to be successful on the pitch over the long term. So that's their laser focus, all around being successful on the pitch. They know, of course, that we operate in a very competitive environment and that there are a number of other teams that have the exact same ambitions we have to compete to win the biggest trophies in the game. So we know it's not easy, and we know that there's hard work ahead, but that absolutely is the focus. They're also focused on stability. They know there's been lots of change at the club, and now it's time for some calm and for some stability. And finally, they believe and trust in the people that we have working in the organisation. So their model is all about empowering the people we have on the ground to deliver against the ambition they have, and of course the ambition that we all share.
So let's talk about the family. Who's been involved from the family so far?
Well, there's been a big focus on the club from the next generation of the family. And to talk you through the key people, so the first is Viv Lewis, who is a very regular attendee at Tottenham Hotspur games and also frequently joins us on pre-season tour. So she was with us this summer for the whole of our tour to Hong Kong and South Korea. And going forward around the club, you'll be seeing a bit more of her brother, Charlie, and also her son-in-law, Nick. And the thing that ties them all together is their passion for Tottenham Hotspur and their ambition for the club moving forward.
So let's talk about Peter Charrington and his role as well.
Sure, well, Peter is not new to the board. He joined our board in March. He is a great guy, very personable, very experienced. We have a great relationship and we speak very, very frequently. I think it's probably important to say that he's going to be doing a different role to the role that Daniel did. So Daniel was executive chairman. So what that meant was Daniel was full-time and involved in the club on a day-to-day basis, where Peter's role is that he will be non-executive chairman, and that means he won't be involved in the club on a full-time basis and he won't be involved in the club on a day-to-day basis. And his model is all around empowerment. He'll be empowering us on the ground to get on with things, but of course he will be leading the board and will be a very important part of the club going forward.
And what about for you personally? What does your role entail now?
Well, I think it's fair to say it's been a very, very busy 3 months. There's not been much in the way of weekends, evenings. Actually, there's not been much in the way of sleep. So it's been a very busy start. But everybody's been really welcoming inside and outside the club. Very warm, very welcoming. So I feel really, really settled in. I'm enjoying it and I'm looking forward to the challenge ahead. But a really important thing to be clear on is this is not just about me, and it's certainly not all about me. Everything that we achieve at the club will be part of a team, and I mean that. So naturally, I guess as chief executive, my name ends up in the media and I end up sitting here and doing an interview with you. But we've got 800 people at the club and we need everybody at the club pulling together to drive us forward. This is certainly not all about one person or a small group of people.
Yeah, the world of football moves so unbelievably quickly. Straight away there was talk of a takeover.
Yes.
Can you just go into a little bit there about what the club stance is on that, and what is the response to that talk so far?
Yeah, I've seen that very quickly, as you say, there's been a lot of newspaper articles and a lot of media speculation around Takeover, so I can be really clear on this. So the Lewis family are really clear. They see their involvement in Tottenham Hotspur being long-term, and they see their involvement continuing through the generations. We made a statement very late last night, and the statement, I hope, was unambiguously clear that Tottenham Hotspur is not for sale.
The natural progression for fans is that they will want to know, what does this mean in terms of investment into the team that will take to the field, both on the men's and on the women's side as well? How does this affect our ability to invest in those sides?
Sure, so I need to try and answer your question without leading to a whole load of transfer war chest stories tomorrow. Listen, I think it is very fair to say that we have firm backing from the Lewis family against our ambitions to be successful on the pitch, both on the men's side and women's side. They know that's going to require investment, and we have their firm backing. But I would also say, like all other 20 Premier League clubs, we also need to make sure that we're also cognizant and aware of the financial fair play rules. And that means we need to continue to grow our revenues. We need to continue to develop players, both from the academy and young players that we buy. We need to make sure that we're selling players at the right time. And we also need to make sure that every time we're recruiting a player, we're making smart decisions, both from a sporting perspective and a financial perspective. If you don't do that, because of how the financial regulations work, you can find yourself in a position where you've got money to spend, but the regulations don't allow you to spend it. So I guess to summarise, absolutely there's financial backing against the ambition we have, and like every other club in the Premier League, we need to do that in line with the financial fair play rules.
Take me into this next period of time. What comes next?
Listen, I think, as I said at the start, it is business as usual in many ways. When I joined, I talked about wanting to do three things. The first is doing everything I could to support our excellent technical teams on the ground, both on the men's side and the women's side, to give us the best chance to be successful on the pitch. That continues to be a focus. I said my second focus was going to be around our people at the football club, making sure that we're doing everything we can to empower them to be at their best, to drive the club forward, and have the best people with the best culture to deliver against our ambitions. And the third one, our relationship with our supporters, make sure that they're right behind us, make sure that they understand what we're trying to do, communicate better with our supporters, and ultimately make them proud of what their football club is trying to do and what our football club over time will deliver.
There you go. That was Vinai Venkatesham, the interview. Oh, listen, it's an interesting interview because, you know, we've spoken about the fact of there needing to be transparency, clear, concise dialogue between the club to the fans. And you could argue, I mean, that's really what you did get in that, 8.5 minutes, nearly 9 minutes of an interview there with Vinai, that sit down where he reiterated the point, Spurs are not for sale. He confirmed Vivienne and Charlie Lewis and Tavistock's Nick Beucher are driving forces behind the club following Daniel Levy's departure. He's made it very clear from his perspective it is business as usual. But I think it's fair to say that with an interview like that comes a whole host of questions where, I mean, one of the very first for me is I can't remember Tottenham ever doing an interview in that nature where you even have whoever that is kind of in that higher up name checking people like that. It just hasn't ever happened to my knowledge as being a Spurs fan over, God, I don't like myself too much, 30 plus years. Con, what was your initial takeaway from that? Because I know a lot of people, I think people are delighted to have transparency and clear, concise communication as to what is going on. But it also raises a lot of questions that come off the back of an interview like that. What was your gauge on that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think without doubt, Vinai is a really strong communicator.
Great talker. Yeah.
I think he come across personable. I think he comes across well. I think he's a much, much better speaker than Levy, who was a bit of an awkward introvert. Obviously, you know, people will make the point that both the questions and answers are scripted, but they're always going to be in that type of situation. And I actually did think, to be fair, that there were some questions that I would want. There's other questions I'd want to ask as well, but there were some questions I think that helped explain to fans some of the detail, and even, as you say, specifically naming members of the Lewis family who are going to be involved and all of that type of stuff, I thought was certainly on the positive side. I mean, of course, with any of this stuff, you can talk the talk, but you've got to walk the walk, and we'll see whether that happens. And we as fans can all judge that. But yeah, I wouldn't. I think it's a good thing that they're coming out and being more transparent. And I think, it's interesting. Vinai is a lot less, and maybe it's this introverted Levy side of things where he's socially awkward. But for me, I did think that Vinai was very much, and some of it is corporate speak, but talking about like how the rest of the team behind him is important and all of this type of stuff. Whereas you compare that to a Levy, and Levy's quite narcissistic in the way that he talks, and it's almost like, I think he loved that it was the Levy show and that he was involved in everything. And he talks about, look at how hard I work and look at all the amazing things I've done. And I've delivered you this stadium. I was there, laying the bricks. So, I think I think that's certainly a difference. But yeah, the proof will be in the pudding. I think the one thing that I picked up, or one of the things that I picked up in it, was he made the comment. He said, "We are completely backed by our majority shareholder, the Lewis family." I thought it was quite telling that he didn't say we're backed by ENIC, and he's specific. Now that might have been because he was trying to make it more personable than an entity.
Okay.
But my sort of read into that a little bit was, is that because he's saying, back to my earlier point, Levy is not going to front up any cash, because Levy's still a shareholder. So if ENIC were going to put in cash, in the ordinary course, you'd expect that Levy would put in his percentage of that cash, 29%, and Lewis Family Trust would put in the other percentage of that cash. Whereas he didn't mention ENIC once in the way that he spoke about that, and obviously spoke about the Lewis family. So to me, that sort of supports what is my theory, that they're going to try and find cash from elsewhere. But and obviously we know as well, the club themselves said 2 years ago that they were actively seeking investment, right? So it's not like it's a stretch that's going to happen. So yeah, I think it's fine, but the devil will be in the detail.
Yeah, I mean, some comments. I mean, some people say that wasn't an interview. That was a statement. I mean, Brian, I bring you in. I suppose one of the things that we have to say is, I know we keep saying this because, again, I've said this, the Lewis children, but the Lewis children, they were in their 30s when ENIC bought in. So it's very strange that now, 24, 25 years later, they're suddenly taking an interest. For someone like you that has been, rightly, I think, critical of Daniel's, certainly the last 4 or 5 years is probably where I think a lot of people would have turned, where I know, bless you, Min-hyeok was the line for you where it was crossed. What was your gauge of that interview for you and how it come across? I know there's a bit of corporate speaking there about empowerment and the team. What was your takeaways from that for you? How did you see it?
So first of all, what I love about our fan base and as a club as well, Daniel Levy has been gone 4 days. 4 days. And everyone thinks everything's going to change. Right, we're here. We're multi-billionaires. We're going to go spending money left, right, centre. They can't do anything till January. To prove us wrong, the only thing they can do to prove us wrong is start offering big contracts to people like Van der Ven or wherever it may be, or put a Bill Nicholson statue by the gates, or name a stand. They can't do anything until January. We also have said for years and years, we want the club to be more transparent with us. We want them to come out and speak and let us know what's going on at the club, whether you like it, what was said, whether you hate what was said, whether you don't believe what was said. Everything we've asked for since Vinai came in with transparency and being more open, they've gone and done. Yeah. I am hugely, people are going to be surprised. I am hugely optimistic going forward. I hear so many people saying, do you know what, why are ENIC going to chill out? You said for 25 years, yada, yada, yada. When Arsenal, that lot down the road, were going mad about Kroenke, and he'd been there for years, they brought in his son Josh. And as soon as Josh came in, bang, they started going mad and focusing on the football. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's like we're saying this, and we're saying it's the same old ENIC, but it's not. There's no Daniel Levy. There's no Donna Cullen. There's a brand new board, and that word that you kept saying, empowering, do you know what? I actually loved that he was saying that. To me, that may have been corporate, but to me, we've had Daniel Levy micromanaging every little detail, whether it be a commercial deal, a player sale, a contract negotiation. We've got people at this football club that have specific roles at this football club to do things. And we know beforehand with Daniel, when it's come with Paul Mitchell and directors of football say, go for this one, go for this.
Paul Barber that we've let go. I said this last night. Damien Kamoli. We've let go so many talented people.
Exactly. So maybe with this structure now, with no micromanager and going forward, maybe empowering means people at the football club are going to be allowed to do what they were hired for, and we're going to take their word and their knowledge and their specialist or speciality and let them make the decisions. This is all, like we said, this is all hearsay. The only thing we can see, I'm giving them 2 windows immediately. I'm like, do you know what? I wanted Daniel Levy at this football club, as people know. And I campaigned for this for 17 years. Yeah. Now I've got it. I'm not going to go, right now I'm going to go for you. I'm like, right, I've got what I wanted. Let's roll the dice and see where we go. But it's a completely, like Connor said, it's the Lewis family. We keep saying kids, Vivienne, but we know for years Vivienne has wanted to get involved. We know for years Vivienne has been
at a lot of games. She's also been at a lot of games.
And she's wanted to invest in the football club. She's wanted to invest in building a team that's successful on the pitch. So we can only wait and see what happens. But if you look at that lot down the road when they campaigned about getting Kroenke's out, Wenger out, well, they both got what they wanted. Josh came in. They may not have been successful or won anything, but their transfer strategy has completely changed. They have gone and got the players, dropped 100 for Declan Rice. Not saying we will, but I am actually very optimistic.
And also, I mean, again, the wage structure has also massively changed in that time as well. Massively changed.
Yeah.
Luke, let's come over to you. I mean, it keeps circling back, I feel, to this question that people keep asking is that, I mean, what were the Lewis and you're not even kids anymore? What were they doing in the last 25 years? Vivienne's already in her 60s. You know, if they were that passionate about Spurs, why have they, Luke, not got involved sooner? What's your take on that, Luke, and what you made of that interview from Vinai? And we'll get you to unmute for us.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's my thinking of it as well, is just where have you been and why has it taken so long? Because let's be quite clear on this. If Daniel Levy if Daniel Levy had a certain amount of money that he could spend that he wasn't spending for whatever reason, and then you see the rumours, you hear all the stuff, Spurs are missing out because of a couple of million there, a couple of million here. As his boss, you'd be going, but why is that? Because I have the money. The money's not the issue. We've got it here. So it was clearly a strategy that ENIC were happy with, because if they wasn't, then they're the ones that make the decisions. Exactly. There would have been pressure put upon him. There'd be bits that come out in the media were saying that we've got the money that's available, et cetera, et cetera. They can put money into trusts, et cetera, and all different. So again, for me, it's a little bit like, as I said before, Levy's kind of been Levy. Now, it doesn't mean that that's going to be a negative for the club. If that's what happens, I mean, we've done it with managers and we've moved on and sometimes gone on to bigger and better things. But I do find it interesting. And Brian has hit the nail on the head exactly with, we want our club to be more transparent, but we need to also respect the fact we're not going to be told everything, because that's not how a club operates, right? There are going to be certain things that you're going to have to read between the lines. There are going to be certain things that they don't announce. And Levy started doing more interviews and we absolutely slaughtered him at every opportunity, at everything he said. Why would he then carry on doing interviews? It doesn't make any sense, because all he does is get slaughtered. And then we could do the same thing here with Vinai, but we want to hear more. They're speaking more. Maybe after a little while, when the reactions are better and more positive, maybe they will tell us a little bit more. They're not going to tell us loads, and we need to just understand that from the very start. But I did find it interesting that he said 2 things. One of them being that Daniel Levy has set the foundations. That would have gone absolutely crazy if Levy had said that. I have set the foundations for this club to go on. But then secondly, you mentioned FFP. And again, if Levy would have said that, that's all you would have got from that whole interview would have been, oh, FFP again, FFP again.
Really interesting you say that,
the new guy mentions it and everyone's like, so in a way, and I know that Brian's bringing the positivity and I absolutely love it, but in a way, is this a masterstroke? Because, and Brian quite rightly is saying we need to give them some time to be able to prove to us that they've changed. Yeah. But they've got themselves a year by going, Levy, go, bye-bye. We've got a year now to we've got all of that fire off our backs, all of them protests, all chill out a little bit. The fan base will be a bit calmer. So is it a masterstroke by them to just another delaying tactic where they're another year or two down the line etc., etc. So I hope I'm wrong. It is the cynic in me. It's just to play the devil's advocate, if you like.
Well, I know, Luke, a lot of people feel the same way you're feeling. People want to be excited, but I think, again, this is the point, Connor, isn't it? We've seen 24, 25 years of ENIC. Again, Daniel Levy's been operating under ENIC. Why is it now a problem? Why wasn't it a problem in the previous last 24 years up until Daniel's departure? Can you understand why fans, some of them are quite reluctant to want to get too carried away, because it's the same ball that we've operated under? I mean, can it really change, Con? Can it really change?
Who knows? I think Brian raises obviously a good example, which is the Cronkies. Is a really, really good example of one where it has changed, because I mean, definitely the viewpoint across the Arsenal fan base was that they wanted the Cronkies out, right? Definitely, and it wasn't until Josh stepped in and then they decided to invest, over 300 million since Arteta's been there, of their own money into the football club to get them competing again. And obviously they've been very aligned in terms of having that sort of clear strategy as well. And, to Brian's point, they haven't won anything yet. And touch wood, that carries on, but they've given themselves the best chance of success with the way that they've operated, which I think is all you can ever ask of an ownership. Sometimes you're going to get over the line, sometimes you won't. I think the thing with the kids, the Lewis family, which is the trust arrangement has been in place
in their 60s.
In their 60s.
I hope I'm referred to as a kid in my 60s. That'd be great.
The trust arrangement's been in place since 2022, right? And so maybe it's taken some time, realistically, for them to get more control from Dad. But I was reflecting on their first year of the trust, and the first year that the trust arrangement was in place, we finished 8th. So this was the year before Ange was hired. And it was the same year that Daniel Levy also was awarded a £3 million bonus. So, ENIC have been very, very happy with Levy's performance over that period. And even the trust arrangement were superbly happy with Levy's performance in their first year in operation. And so, it's just interesting that suddenly there's this change, and Levy was the one, as Luke said, if you were to believe the reporting, it's like Levy was the key reason and the only reason we didn't have consistent sporting success. Well, actually, it's probably to do with both his flaws, but also the fact that you only decided to invest £5 million a year for 24 years, right? So, I think you got to see both sides of it. But I do agree with Brian. We do need to. I think you give this 2 transfer windows to see how it plays out and whether there is a sea change. I think the director of football appointment might be one where we might actually see something potentially different. That might be something we see earlier than the transfer window, because I think, as we discussed, Rick, I can't see Paratici coming back now.
How quickly do you think we'll get that decision, Con, in terms of who is heading up the director of football, or whatever they want to call that role? Technical director is what Johan Langer is. When do you think we'll get that decision either way, as to whether Fabio Paratici is coming back full time, or if that role is going to be shared between the two, or Lang will depart? When do you think we might hear some news on that? Because it feels like we're going to, if we are, they've been saying they've been succession planning for a long time. And, again, Vinai has said in that interview, the club is well organised for success. We've got extremely strong executive leaders across the place. When will we get that decision for you, Con, do you think? Or will we hear?
I think
will we hear?
Well, I think there's a couple of points. I think Langer wasn't mentioned, as I said before, in the sort of Levy out statement, which for me was quite telling, given Frank was mentioned and so was Martin Ho, as the manager of the women's team. So that was telling for me that maybe definitely isn't part of the go forward. Paratici, as I say, was almost Daniel Levy's man, wasn't he? And I think Vinai and Charrington are going to want to disassociate from the past of Paratici. He might stay as a consultant, but I can't see him being a director of football. And if you think as well, the model that Tottenham haven't operated, but other big clubs operate, is that the director of football has a lot more power. And do you want to necessarily trust that in the hands of a Paratici? But they need to, just to answer your question in terms of timing, they need to do it quite soon, because you want to be well prepped, and we don't want to go into the January window with the standard thing of not being ready from the 1st of January and having to, wait. So, I mean, I think a decision has got to be made on that in the next 6 weeks, probably.
Well, just on that point, we are expecting members of the Lewis family to be in attendance for Spurs' game against West Ham United at the London Stadium. This will obviously mark the first time since Daniel Levy has stepped down as chairman that the Lewis family or members of the Lewis family will be there in front of the cameras, which is to be seen as quite significant. What do you make of that, Brian? The fact they're going to make a television appearance?
Well, that means they've been more times than Joe Lewis has in 24 years, haven't they? So that's already a difference. I think it's very telling. We all want to. Levy was always there, wasn't he? Give him his credit for that. No matter what, home, away, Europe, pre-season,
and even in the protest, he was there as well.
Yeah, he was. Listen, he was always there. And that's what we're saying. There's loads of mud being thrown at ENIC. They're not at games, and how do they care about the team? I think that it doesn't show, oh my God, things are changing. But it's always good to have a person high in power there to represent the club. And obviously the main man has gone. I think it's only a good sign. We were talking before about, what was I going to say? About, obviously, I just want to quickly mention as well, when people have been going on about, we've only got 100 million invested, or ENIC have said it. Coming in January, I think we didn't get a left winger because Frank wants Savinho, for example. And he's like, right, we're not going to buy a player. I can hold out until January to get him. I think we get a player like him in the first week of the window. I really do. I think they'll make a statement. And then there's 35 million left for a left set. I don't know what everyone's going mad about with just 100 million. Yes, we need more. But in January, if they're putting 100 million in, but I am just honestly excited going forward. You can see it radiating out of me. It's like literally, I am.
It's the habits I've seen you. Yeah.
This is like my version. You know when they say a pregnant woman is glowing? Well, I am glowing. I've got my Levy glow. I honestly, it really is exciting times, and let's just go to see what happens. But I think when people are going on, you've got to remember, if they invest 100 mil as well, deals are done where it's paid in installments, isn't it? It's not like. Yeah. So we'll see come January. But going back to what you said about them being there, does that make a statement? Does that make a statement? Yeah, I think it does. But does it make the statement that everyone's blowing it up to be? No, I don't. Time will tell.
Yeah, it's an important point to say, Luke. Do you think that realistically, we talk about, talk is cheap, the words of what's being said, it is going to be about more actions than words. And the reality is that, I suppose, again, it comes to that point, we're going to see what they can do in terms of the January window, which I think will be tough for Tottenham because, again, they haven't got a huge amount of movement in terms of squad options there and squad availability when it comes to Champions League, Premier League registration. That's one thing. And I suppose number two, difficult window generally to operate. But again, if everyone knows we've got money to spend, or again, immediately the prices go back up and it makes it difficult to do deals. But do you think that we might see then a real genuine push in these next couple of windows, which will give an intention out to the fans if ENIC are really serious? Like Connor said, I think 2 windows would give us an idea as to how serious they would be before people might be still getting concerns, murmurs about whether this would still be the right thing for the football club or for the fans to have ENIC here in the long haul.
Yeah, 100%. It takes more than one for sure. And I think that there are also some clear spaces in which where we can improve this. Let's not forget Ange's first campaign. He had an unbelievable first summer window, and then the 3 windows that followed weren't good enough. Money was spent, but not sufficiently, not on good enough players, etc. So I definitely think that's an interesting point. And I think that is, if they've completely adopted, let's just say that it was all on Levy and now that they've stepped in and they're going to run it the way they want to. The one thing I was saying in the summer was that if we're targeting this level of players, we're going to miss out on players, and other big teams are going to take players off of us. That's unfortunately just part of being in this realm of targeting top players. You're going to miss out on them. But also, if they are going and saying, actually, let's not be unrealistic. If it's a number one target, and there's obviously the Savinio deal is the one that kind of stands out. If he's sitting there saying Spurs are where I want to be, and actually we're waiting 6 months to get it over the line, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, because I think far too often we've gone for options 2, 3, and 4, and then within a year or two we're looking at upgrading them already. So therefore it becomes a huge amount of money that's just been wasted. They're then on a long contract. Can we get rid of them? We know what Spurs are like at getting rid of players. So if we're adopting this, where we're going, we've got number 1, 2, and 3 as targets, and actually if we can't get them, we're not getting anyone else. It's a learning curve as fans. What we have to do is learn new that this is apparently a new phase of the ownership, and we need to see and judge it on that basis. Now, I think fans have been quite lenient on not getting Savinio and not getting a left winger. I think some are upset with it. If we go and get one in January, then that's one thing. If we don't, and then in the summer we're still scratching our heads at what's happening, that's when you've kind of got to be like, well, hang on a minute. Have we been tricked here again? Because I think that's happened loads of times. It was the stadium, it was this, it was that, and it goes back to the point me and Connor have made, is that, as I said, the ENIC have known about this. This has been a while, and let's be completely frank here. Take away your supporter hat on. If you're an investor and Levy is the person in charge of your investment, you are very happy. When someone makes 10 times, 15 times what you've paid and put into this club, and 25 years later, you're now looking at billions, they're going to be very, very happy at what he's done. And that's why he was so well paid as a chairman, because he hit all of the benchmarks that they would have given him in terms of marketing, sponsorships, FFP, and all of that sort of stuff. So I think we definitely have to give him a few summers. But I think the guys are right in terms of, we can see what the attitude of the club is like, even though we're not in a transfer market. You can see whether they're interacting with fans. You can see whether there's murmurs that are out there. You'll be able to gauge, and then the summers will really prove. The January transfer will really prove it. Imagine we go out in the first week and Savinio's wrapped up and done.
Yeah.
Or is it the same January window where we don't have a defender and we wait until February before we sign one? Like, they're gonna be clear indicators in the summer, but I still think that they can do things in between. And you're right, director of football. There's a couple of director of footballs out there that you think if you go and get them, you mean serious business. And actually, when you look at it over the last probably 5 or 6 years, it isn't the money that's been spent that's a problem. It really, really isn't. It's the quality of player we're bringing in is just simply not good enough. So that comes down to a recruitment process. That comes down to, are we checking these players out? Do we know whether they've got the right mentality? Do we know whether they're proven? These sorts of things. So definitely every facet of this club needs to step up, and hopefully this is the start of it.
Agree. Connor, if you want to come back in on a point you were going to mention there.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, Luke raises a point, and you sort of think change for Tottenham being the sort of message with that group. I mean, what we can't deny, albeit we don't know exactly how this ownership piece is going to play out, and that arguably is, for me, maybe the most important piece of the jigsaw. They have, at least, you can't argue that other things around the club haven't changed, right? They've got, Levy's gone, which I don't think any of us thought we'd be sitting here having this conversation in September 2025. You've got a new CEO, you've got you've got new coaching team, you've got a whole new way of communicating, you've got Charrington's come on the board. So there's been changes for sure, right? And I think people will have to appreciate there will be some teething issues of those changes as well, right? As there always is. For all of his faults, Levy was probably doing 3 or 4 people's jobs at one point, and you sort of now dividing that out more sensibly. But there's people have got to get up to speed with all of that. But yeah, as I say, I think it's going to be Luke is right as well. The net spend for sure has grown since we moved into the stadium. We've spent money. I think what we're now seeing, and hopefully we started to see it in the summer, albeit I don't think this summer was particularly different in terms of transfer spend to the last couple of years. So this is why I don't think I've got hard evidence yet from this summer, but certainly the profile of player was a better targeted, and the wages that those 4 signings will attract is better. And we know we've got huge headroom when it comes to that type of stuff. So Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is, for me, my ultimate would have been, this news came with us already knowing that there was going to be a change in ownership and we were going to get in, a set of owners who had that ambition that matched the brilliant platform we've now got. I think we're going to still have to wait for that bit, unfortunately, but at least it's steps in the right positive direction, I think, if we try and put a positive spin on this stuff.
Yeah, I think you can say time is going to tell, and it's one of those things that, unfortunately, there's no, again, definitive thing on that. It depends how patient you are willing to give it under ENIC now, because again, like Brian said, there's been a lot of pressure definitely on Daniel, and they've now removed Daniel. It's maybe given them some extra headroom there to allow them to see how they can get their feet under the table. If they are going to get their feet under the table, that is, of course, Joe Lewis's children, the adults they are now in their 60s. Will they get involved? This is the key. Look, we're going to squeeze in our final break of the show for our listeners that are on audio. We have got nearly 10,500 of you that are watching us live. As always, guys, thank you ever so much for your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. You can keep liking, subscribing. That'll be great. We're joined by Brian over at Tottenham on tour. We're joined by Luke over at Spotlight on Spurs. We're joined by wonderful Levynomics 882 Connor, of course. Keeping a handle for now. Please make sure you like, subscribe, follow all their respective places you can find these wonderful people. Guys, very quickly, I have to ask you about this interesting story, because it now seems more prevalent than ever following Levy's departure, because it felt he would be one of the reasons why this man might not come back to Tottenham. Harry Kane. You're asking me maybe why I'm asking you about Harry Kane. Well, it does appear Bayern Munich are making preparations already for Kane's eventual departure, with it being reportedly common knowledge now in Germany that the striker won't finish his career there. But he's understood to be very happy in Bavaria, and he has less than 2 years left on his existing deal. This is also key to note. No discussions are currently underway regarding an extension beyond his contract, which ends in June of 2027. Bayern obviously have, of course, been pursuing strikers during the recent transfer window. They had unsuccessful pursuits of Nick Voldemada, who ended up at, of course, Newcastle United. They also tried for Christopher Nkunku. They eventually ended up with Nicholas Jackson on a season-long loan, but crucially with that, there's an option to make the move permanent. We all know Harry, look, came through the ranks at Spurs, club legend, become the club's all-time leading goal scorer. However, I think there's always been that feeling maybe that Daniel Levy being there at Tottenham would maybe make it quite hard for his return. I think we all heard murmurs and suggestions about how Kane left the club, and maybe there was even talk that he wasn't even allowed back in the training ground come the very, very end of his time at Spurs. Does Levy's departure make a Kane reunion possible? Luke, what do you think? We'll start with you. Can you see Harry Kane back at Tottenham? Of course, once that Premier League record, can you see it?
Just bring him home. Just bring him home. I'd love for him to come back. I know you shouldn't go back, but I think that he's better than what we have, and I don't think we need to worry about him losing any pace. I think if you put the right sort of players in the team with him, I think he will score goals for a long, long time yet. And I think that's the bottom line for us. We need to be improving the 11, and for me, he's better than what we have. So therefore, it's a no-brainer, even if you're just looking at it from a couple of years' point of view. But also, and I think this is really sometimes forgotten about as fans, that there's a bigger picture to everything. There always is a bigger picture to things. And if you was a youngster coming through the ranks, if you was like Luca Barnett and Kane comes home, it will be a huge lift to everyone at the club.
Yeah,
fans will be bang on. So we're talking about now, are these owners serious? Are they going to change? Are they do this? I know it probably won't happen in January, but if we go and sign Kane, you're like, yeah, do you know what? They are being serious. And do you know what it also represents? It represents that they're not looking in 10, 15 years' time, this club's going to be somewhere. They're going, if you're buying Kane, you want it now. You want something to be done now, because he's not going to be around in 10 years' time. So I think it makes sense on so many levels. And as I said, I think that if you have a level of the level of Kane, you bring in the players to benefit his game, then you've got a player there that can play 35, 36, 37, 100%. I've always said, if you get a player that runs in behind consistently, exactly like Son did, I kept saying that Anthony Gordon was the dream for me, because of the way that he plays, just running in behind relentlessly would give Kane so much opportunity to be able to do what he does best. But I think he will always score goals. I think he will just always score goals. And as I said, he's better than what we have. So therefore, that's what we should be targeting. But yeah, I think it'd be a huge lift.
It's interesting, Brian. I mean, we talk about the fact of trying to win fans over immediately if there's any doubts about ENIC. Bringing home Harry Kane, poster boy, what he was at the football club, all-time top goal scorer. I think we all agree that he's a player that still could offer so much. Just, again, to the youngsters in the group, by the way of his example. The key thing is, does Kane want to come back? Yeah, that's one thing you have to ask. He seems to want to come back to the Premier League. If he wants to come back to Tottenham, that's the thing. But you would imagine Daniel Levy might have been a big blocker for him in that. And obviously, Donnacalla not being here, does that also help? And it goes back to that point we said earlier. Does ENIC win over fans by bringing back the poster boy? What do you think, Bri? Is it realistic?
Absolutely. What I don't want to really say, but I'm going to say it because I was uber-duper, but my hit rate on being positive on players is very, very poor. But I think all the stars are aligning. There's big rumours he's not going to see out his contract and Bayern are going to want to cash in on him. The main culprit, where obviously the gentleman's agreement, the match my ambition and I stay, he's gone. The guy, and like you said, Cullen, to come back to Tottenham, smash Shearer's record at the club he loves, hopefully get a trophy in the bag, working under Frank. And also, Frank will use him wisely. And I think we've got to remember as well, people going on about his age, this guy is so good, he could drop into the number 10. He could be the creator. He could be the person that dictates. You could even see him going into midfield and doing it. We talk about having midfield passers that can dictate play. As he gets older, and you've seen it with players, as they get older, they move back. This guy is absolutely, like, I think the romantic happy ending is coming. I cannot see how this doesn't happen. I've been speaking with people, and like literally as soon as Levy left, everyone was like, it can happen. It can happen. And do you know what? I would love to see him back. And I think we would all love to. And as you rightfully said, Ricky, if we're talking about ENIC go and make a statement that we're going to do things differently and we're going to pay the big wages, we're going to bring the players back. Yeah. Well, what bigger statement can you have than bringing this man home?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, Con, because Levy claimed shortly after Kane left the club that Tottenham had some sort of a buyback clause in the deal, and it's believed that Tottenham would have the opportunity to match a bid from any other club that attempts to sign Kane in the future. The one thing we don't know is, does Kane want to come back to Tottenham, Con? I mean, we were all getting, I think, smiles on our faces when we heard Brian talking about it. I mean, look, I think Kane could still do a job, and I think it's one of those things there, because there's a lot of hatred out there for non-Tottenham fans. I think people only actually appreciated the ability of Kane as a footballer when he left Tottenham. I think when he was at Tottenham, all the rival fans didn't really appreciate for what a player he was. Suddenly he leaves, and then I see a lot of outpouring even from Arsenal fans saying, God, this guy's great. And we knew it was great. He was great, not from finishing only, but had an excellent range of passing on him, had that ability, as we know, to kind of spot pictures really before anyone else did. What do you think, Con? Is it a realistic proposition, Kane coming back? You look very unsure.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy after all of the positivity and optimism about potential. I can't see it myself, I have to say.
Why is that?
I think when players go back, it don't often work for a start. I think there's, I do think there is a time to move on. You don't have that many comebacks that work. I also, that's people saying boo, sorry.
But could you imagine? Could you imagine him playing for any other Premier League club then, Con? Could you see him playing?
No. Do you know where I can see him going to Barcelona?
But you don't think this record of becoming the top scorer in the Premier League doesn't interest him?
Maybe, but at the same time, I think I could. For me, Barcelona love that type of deal, and then playing for the prestige of a Barcelona type. He replaces Lewandowski there, becomes the sort of the face at Barcelona, and playing with Yamal and Rafinha, and you win the La Liga. I don't know. For me, I could just see that happening. It could be, they love a deal as well because they're a bit skint. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I necessarily could see him playing at another Premier League team. But who knows? Who knows?
I think it just comes down to how much he wants that record. And I just got a feeling, because he's done what he's done in terms of won now trophies obviously, was a keen ambition of his. I would be really surprised if not high up on his priority list is to come back to the Premier League and get that accolade. And again, it also depends where Spurs are at in the next year or two. It goes back on. I'm sorry to do this to you. What you said the other night, that if there is a change in ownership and they can win it within 5 years, well, Kane could be here and win a league title. Now I am doing Brian and getting carried away. Only 5 minutes I was thinking, God, we've got to let ENIC prove ourselves. There we are. I'm talking about us winning the bloody league in 5 years and Kane steering us to it. I don't know. I've just got this feeling. I think now, even like things like in the past, he thought of, and people might not want him back, but even down the line, I'm really happy with Frank, just to be clear. But now you think about someone like Pochettino, people might not even want Poch back. I'm just saying that you just knew was never, ever going to be possible. It felt whilst Donna Cullen was there, and of course Daniel Levy might have been there. But there also opens up so many possibilities, like we've said now, with those 2 exits about negotiations for players, that maybe wouldn't have been possible. I just feel like, I know a lot of the comments here, Matt Barden saying it, Kane has unfinished business around Tottenham. And that's what I do agree with. I think he would be such a great influence on a lot of the young players who got coming through. And then the thought of having him, Kudus, Simmons. Oh, I
think also because like winning the trophy, he absolutely, like if he stayed at Spurs his whole career, and obviously I know we got the Europa League and didn't win anything, then there'll be a load of criticism his way. But as Owen said on his podcast, there is only one person that has scored the most goals in the league. Loads of players have league titles, like loads. So he's won a title. He's won a big title. It's a league title. I know it's in Germany, etc. But it's that feeling of winning something, and then also maybe us winning something. He thinks, because like let's be clear, I think that him winning the Europa League for us would have meant far more to him than winning a league title at Bayern.
Yeah.
And maybe he's sitting there thinking, well, actually, if there is some level of ambition, if Spurs go and get Savinho in January, that is some place that I could have maybe not win a league. Let's just be like, maybe not win a league, but I can win an FA Cup.
Yeah, but even get back to competing, Luke. I think, again, we're only 3 or 4 players away from competing even, Luke.
Yeah, and I just think he's so. If he needed to be in the Premier League for 5, 6, 7 years, then maybe he'd be going. If he was 100 away, if he was 120 away, or something like that. But I think he's so close.
48. He needs 48 to get the record there. Marco, thank you for sharing. 48 goals away. I mean, he could do that over a couple of seasons.
But I could equally like going to Barcelona is unbelievable. Yeah. I suppose it all comes down to how much of a supporter of Spurs is he. Is it like some players where like Son obviously didn't grow up supporting Spurs, but you can see that he's become a Spurs supporter.
He loved the club.
Has Harry Kane just became a Spurs supporter because he was there so long, or does he really live and breathe it? Because that I think will be a big decision here. Because I'm sure if he turns around and says to Bayern, actually that's where I want to go, then we should be able to make it happen. And even on the money aspect, I think Spurs should be able to.
The wages shouldn't be a problem now. I mean, the wages shouldn't be a problem now. I mean, I go back to that at the moment. He's scored 91 goals in 100 appearances for Bayern. I mean, that is ridiculous.
And you go back to the Bayern Munich accounts. They was all like, and we've been saying it for years. He's been a 1-season wonder for about 27 years. It's crazy. But Bayern Munich, the fans were going, Lewandowski, he's absolutely top drawer. Now he's gone there. Bayern fans are going, Spurs fans may have been onto something. So, we have been
for years,
and 300 goals later, some people are going, do you know what? But there's still even some out there now that think that he's not, like as you just said, 100 goals in near enough 100 games, ridiculous. And that's not including assists.
It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely.
But he's already scored 6 already this season for Bayern. It's not like he's declining, is it? I mean, he's still up there as a potent goal scorer. All right, maybe should we get around the table on it? Go on, Luke. What are you doing?
No, I was just going to say, people are saying like Farmers League and things like that about he's done it here. Like this isn't just. It's not like he didn't score goals here and then went there and scored loads of goals. Like he scored goals everywhere. He's England's top goal scorer. Spurs is nearly the Premier League's.
How can anyone be doubting where Harry Kane is scoring goals or how he's scoring goals? This guy is a guy. It's just. I just find it baffling. The guy. He's a goal scorer. You put him in any team, any country in the world, who score goals.
100%. Just go and get him. That's it. Rick, you've decided it. That's it. We're going to go and get him. Connor, just
we'll railroad Con into this one. We'll railroad Con into this one. All right. Yes or no, bro? Will it happen?
Yeah, let me just say with the Farmers League thing, I hate it when they say that, because when people go to Germany, it's a Farmers League. But when players come from Germany, we can't get them. They're great in the Bundesliga. They're incredible.
Yeah,
it drives me mad how it works that way. Listen, Harry Kane, if you think he's not sitting at home going, right, I'm going to go down as Tottenham's record goal scorer, England's record goal scorer, and now I've got the chance to be the Premier League top goal scorer and have that trilogy, I think he's only coming back to the Premiership, and I think it will be, now Levy's gone, with Tottenham Hotspur. Well, I think I need to be drug tested after this show to make sure that I'm okay. I've been on Levy Kane. I'm calling it Levy Kane. I'm hooked.
I'll tell you, chat, we've convinced Connor. Listen, let's hope we have. Let's go to the final story, which I think we all don't need convincing on. I think we all might agree that this needs to maybe happen for his own benefit. Yves Bissouma, we're hearing talks have reignited with Fenerbahce to get a deal done for Yves Bissouma. Look, we brought you that story only a few weeks ago that there was, again, interest from actually Galatasaray at the time that looked at Bissouma, and due to his physical condition, they decided to look elsewhere. But obviously, Bissouma, it's worth noting, again, this was told to us by Paul O'Keefe, that he has only, I think, 6 months to 9 months to go to gain UK citizenship. Potentially now he's looking at a move to Turkey. He's held talks back in July, nothing materialised at the time, but it looks like now we're in a situation where, he may be on the move. Fenerbahce keen to bring him over. Apparently he's already agreed terms over a move to Istanbul, despite there being a lot of interest still from the Saudi Pro League. He was, of course, left out by Frank of the Super League squad due to disciplinary reasons. I mean, I just think at the moment, if Bissouma doesn't go, I just don't see him getting game time. Boys, a quick round of the table on this one, yes or no? Will Bis go before the end of the international window shutting? Luke, what do you reckon? Will he go? We'll get you to unmute.
Yeah, I think he should go. It's quite clear that he's not part of the expectations of in the squad and how much he'll play. And also just I think he's a very, very good player on his day, but he's not consistent enough. I think Frank looks for consistency. So for me, I think we should be doing exactly what we're doing, taking him out of squads, and it's up to him if he sticks around. But Spurs need to be a bit more ruthless in this aspect.
Okay, Brian, you agree? Same.
Yeah, I'm giving him the Delhi wave goodbye. I think by the time the window shuts, he's gone. He's gone. But being left out of the Champions League squad, being told by Frank you're not going to feature, and then obviously what he did turning up late, I think it's signed, still delivered. I think he's gone.
I was getting deja vu for a second, Brian. When you said when the window shuts, I'm thinking, God, we've done this show before somewhere.
The Turkish window.
It's fine.
Are you doing a deadline special for the Turkish window, Rick?
Depends what's happening in Saudi and Portugal at the time. We might have to reconvene this. So we'll come together for the international deadline day. Only Tottenham. Con, gut feeling. If Bissouma doesn't go, he's not going to get games, is he? I mean, what do you think? Will he go?
If he doesn't go, I'd rip his contract up and release him.
Okay.
I think he's an absolute clown. So I don't think he, and I just don't think you want that type of behaviour around the rest of the squad. Someone turns up late. It's just he's done so many things. We've spoken about it before. You should just release him.
It's also what you say there, which is really important. Is what's the negative impact of keeping him and being around the squad? From that element as well. Maybe not great. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on things with Bissouma. Let's end on some positive news. This now shows you how things are changing at Tottenham. Not only Christian Romero went away on international duty, he's back already. He's back 5 days early for the game against West Ham. Things are really, truly changing when it comes to Tottenham and our new captain, Christian Romero. And also to bring you some news, Radu Dragusin also back in training. Whether this game against West Ham comes too early, we shall see. But times are changing. Romero went on international duty, back already. Bri, new Tottenham, new Romero, new era. Can you take it all in?
It's a new dawn. It's a new day, and all that. I would break into song. I will say, mate, honestly, I am so giddy. I will say, obviously, he got suspended. So, I mean, he could have stayed. The thing is, Rick, he could have stayed with Argentina and watched the second game. But you're right. No, he's back. And Dragusin coming back. I mean, everything is starting to fall into place, isn't it? Especially, he hasn't been named in the Champions League squad. So, one of the main things for us is squad rotation, managing minutes, keeping players fit, and what an option to be able to have him available for either the game before or the game after Champions League, so people like Romero or Van der Ven can have a rest before a big game or after a big game. Yeah. The defensive numbers are coming through, so it's all good news coming round.
Absolutely. And also, I think, Con, you touched upon this last week, actually, with the Tell news that him being lifted out of the squad. He's come out with a really positive interview that he's given to Le Telegram, which obviously is a French-based source, where he said Frank called him and he simply told him his choice that he would not be in the initial list of the Champions League squad. He said, look, it definitely hurts, but I'm someone who stays pretty positive no matter the situation, because I think I've worked a lot on the mental aspect. So definitely it's a disappointment. I would love to have been there, but that's the coach's choice. We can only respect it, and we're going to work hard to come back in the best way possible. I think you actually said at the time, Con, it might be about between him and Odebear who would be able to take that news better. Is that a good sign of the way he's reacted there, that head down, wants to prove us, hopefully, that he's got a big part of his future to play at Tottenham, Con?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, my criticism of the Tell signing is just because I don't think it was good squad building, because you already had, a number of wingers / forwards with potential that may reach it or may not, and then you add another one to that. But as we discussed before, I think there was a good chance it was all agreed in January, and it was a sort of gentleman's agreement. We were always going to trigger the option, so it is what it is. I did think, there is one thing you can't doubt with Tell. He has got a good mentality, and he seems a resilient, young lad, and even with the example with the away fans that time when it was all going Pete's on underhand, right? So yeah, for sure he has, and I saw he obviously scored 2 goals tonight. One was a very good finish. So hopefully, look, he's young, right? And if he does go into it with the right attitude, there's no reason why he can't turn it around, and perhaps he will show us all something that we haven't quite seen yet. But he's really young, and he's, I think we discussed it last time. Sometimes with these young players, I think we judge them harshly because of the fact that Tottenham haven't done the squad build well enough, and we've overpaid for, and we haven't had the established signings come in. But there's certain players, who knows where Kudus was when he was 19. He's now turned into a very good player, and similar with some others, right? And so, some it takes longer to develop. So let's see what happens. But I think now we're starting to see those established signings through. Hopefully there'll be less hate that needs to be directed towards the young players, because actually they don't need to make such an impact immediately.
Yeah, well, he was actually asked whether whether it made him want to leave Spurs. I think we do better due to the Champions League exclusion. He said, look, no matter if he was on the list or not, I would have had this desire to be revengeful, to be able to affect it this season. I'm under contract with Tottenham until 2031, so I'm a Tottenham player, and I'll do my best to quite simply play for the club, play for the fans. I mean, that's the right attitude you want, isn't it, Luke? I mean, it's good to see that attitude from Tell, and like many of the references as well. It's got a great brace, actually, for the French under-21s. I think we all want to get behind the player. And with an attitude like that, he will get the fans right behind him, really, Luke.
He's got a brilliant mentality. People forget there was it was one of the first few games that he came over here and played for us, when it was a rough performance, as a lot were, and he was sent out to do the press conference. And it's like, hang on a minute, it's his second language. He's just signed for the club. Why is he the guy that you're selecting? And
sounds about right. What we normally do. Sounds about right.
Yeah, but that tells me that he's got some sort of mentality, because it wouldn't have been pushed out and him going, oh no, he'd have gone, yeah, all right, I've been at Bayern, I've been at PSG, I know what I'm talking about. Send me out to do it. So I think mentality wise, I can understand, and I think Connor's bang on that if we wasn't going to bring in an experienced pro which he can learn from, then he shouldn't have been the signing that we made. But that is the problem. We should have been signing. We've done our transfers all the wrong way round. We've gone and got all these young boys and these young pros, and then got no one for them to learn from. What we should have done is go and get all the experienced guys, and then bring all the youngsters in to learn from these. Gray learning from Palhinha is going to be much better than Gray learning from Basuma, like he would have done last year. So totally. This is the type of thing that we need. And then going on to what you were saying about Romero, this is, people underestimate the feel-good factor of a club. So we win a Europa League. Would Romero sign a new contract if we didn't? That's up for debate. He signs a new contract. Top players then go, hang on a minute. If Romero's signing a new contract, maybe Spurs is a place that we want to be. You go and get a Kane or a Savinho, and all of a sudden, all of these top players go, I'll go to Spurs to play with Kane. I'll go to Spurs to play with Romero. Do you know what I mean? Like, so these are the things. There's a lot more than just, oh, he's the best player, he should play. There's a lot more that we need to think about, squad planning, like that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's brilliant news. I think Romero now, he just needs to keep fit. If he keeps fit, he is a top centre back. And I think also in terms of, he was a bit inconsistent last year. I think that's injury based. I think that's concentration based. I think that's tactics based. And I think Frank being here puts him in the best position for him to really showcase him being a top centre half in this league.
Yeah, listen, I do agree. Guys, I think we've wrapped up what is the latest Tottenham news. And in true Tottenham fashion, we leave you with, of course, not knowing what comes next, which is always the exciting part of it. You're always in for more. Locked in with us always has been Brian over at Tottenham on Tour. Brian, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's a post-Levy era, and you're living in it, mate. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, buddy. I'm waiting when I come back to London to get my date with Levy, the Levy left as promised, with freedom written above it. So looking forward to doing that in London. But most importantly, Ricky, thanks for having me back. It's great to be on the channel and with your wonderful community in the chat.
Bless you, mate. You're a superstar. Please make sure you go and check Brian out, of course, over at Tottenham on Tour. Luke, thank you so much, mate. We've dragged you back out of the transfer window, although I've just seemed to throw you into the international window towards the end there. Always a pleasure. Luke over at Spotlight on Spurs. And obviously, Luke, you're the Thursday go-to, aren't you? You're the Thursday man on a Thursday.
Yeah, that's it. 9:30 every Thursday. We talk all things Tottenham. Can never give you a plan of what we're going to talk about, because 1 minute we're talking about very little, and then all of a sudden we're talking about the 25-year reign of our chairman stepping down. So who's to know what we're talking about next? But yeah, Thursday night we'll be there to talk about it. And once again, thanks for having me on. It's brilliant coming on, and great to be on with Brian and Connor again.
Mate, you're a star. Thank you so much. And Con, thank you so much. I know I feel like we've used up Connor's credit so far at the moment. The guy, like Brian said, he's almost in demand now. He's like the most in-demand Spurs podcaster. Now the Levy news is breaking. I bet Con will have an oddie. Yeah, we got all these when it's the end of the transfer window. Con goes on all these when the bloody chairman departs. Has it been a bit of a crazy last few weeks, Con?
Yes, and I'm looking forward to no longer speaking about men in suits and speaking about men in football kits, right? And hopefully that will happen in the not so distant future. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on again. It's been a really great chat. Good to be on with Brian and Luke, and yeah, thanks to everyone in the chat as well for getting involved as always.
Yes, we thank you very so much. And Con, just very quickly out there, obviously you do a podcast of your own. Where can people find it? Tell them, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I joined the Grumpy Old Spurs podcast, which is they were a spin-off.
That wasn't what Brian was before a post-Levy era, was it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's.
Sorry,
yeah,
Brian. That was open. It was an open goal. That one. You have to. Let me
I think you could use a different word from grumpy, but yeah, let's go with it for PG era. PG, yeah.
But yeah, that's Monday nights at 8:30. And then obviously you can just see me on various ones when I get wheeled out.
We love that. Wheeled out. He is quite simply being wheeled out at the moment. I'll tell you, the way we're driving him mad. Con, you've been a star. Loads of love for you since you've been on here, I have to say. Luke's holding up the Europa League trophy. He's at the start of many more to come. There will be, I'm sure, Brian, like I say, he will put that on the socials when he's back over here. He's got his tattoo for everyone to see. But guys, massive thank you for all the support. We will bring you the latest Tottenham news whenever it drops, of course. But right now, from the wonderful Brian Dagul at Tottenham on Tour, from Luca at Spotlight on Spurs, and the superb Connor over at Min-hyeok 1882, Spurs are not for sale. Or are they? From us all, keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on you Spurs.